Welcome back. Happy New Year. You made it. I made it. We all made it to the end of another year. It's my favorite time of the month and the year because I get to add up the click counts on everything and see how my monthly work has been going, and also add up the trim counts and bind counts on all the machines and try and figure out what machines I'm running more and which ones less, and then just kind of look at the numbers and scratch my head. But I don't only want to talk about that during this video. I also want to go over my networking and kind of the evolution of our network here in the print shop and the bookstore, and how we've grown, just so you can see how I did it. I'm not a professional, but what I did worked and continues to work for me. So I've already added up the clicks for all the digital presses, and in 2020, so last year, I did 2.8 million clicks. And if you're late to the game, a click is printing on one side of a sheet of paper. So if you print one-sided, it's one click. If you print a sheet on both sides, it's considered 2 clicks. And this year, my total is 4.1 million clicks. So an increase of 1.2 million clicks, which could really be any number of things. And it's actually surprised me that it was that much of an increase, because if you've been watching many of my videos, you know, a couple months ago, I did a video about losing a good customer, and that customer was a pretty big job. So I didn't think my click count was going to go that much higher. But if you remember, during that video, I was optimistic because, you know, where one job leaves, and I can, you know, get more of my other backlog of work done. So I need to think about exactly why the increase is. I mean, I'm not complaining, but I'm just curious because, you know, if I can help it along. That also kind of validates my theories of the paper shortage is partially because of the increased demand in paper. Because I'm a small printer, but there's tens of thousands of printers across the country that if we all increased our paper consumption by just 10%, that's a big amount of paper, and the mills have to keep up with that. So I was just thinking to myself, it would be interesting to see if it was color or black and white clicks that grew over the past year so much. So I just opened up my spreadsheet here and let me show you what I found. Okay, so here you can see the 2.8 million clicks, and that's the combined black and white and color for 2020. And then I broke them out here, and you can see overwhelmingly I do a lot more monochrome. And then this year, just slightly more monochrome at 2.6 instead of 2 million, but almost twice the amount of color. So that affirms what I've always believed is happening in my business anyway, is color clicks are growing so much faster than monochrome. And that's why I'm hesitant to add on additional monochrome or even replace my 1200, because I kind of see it as a dying thing. But as you can see, still the grand total of clicks that I'm printing here is monochrome. That's interesting. That's why I said earlier, it's kind of fun just to look at these numbers, scratch my head, and see what things I think of. Okay, some interesting statistics if you're interested about my print shop. I already gathered the information here. This past year I've laminated about 34,000 sheets of paper. So that's not necessarily 34,000 book covers, because some of the time I'm doing 2-up books. But so that's about, I'd say slightly above average, but what I used as a number to try and figure out what I charge and how much I was willing to spend on that machine. Perfect binding. This past year I perfect bound about 34,000 books. No, 36,000 books. That's not bad. That's probably about average. 3 knife trimmer. Well, that would be about the same as the Perfect Bound books. About, yep, 35, 36,000. That's not bad. That old girl is getting up there. 3 knife trimmer has 332,000 trims on it, and I bought it, it had 20,000 on it. So, pushed a lot of books through there over the years. So, I keep those all in the maintenance log, as most of you probably already know, and I'm going to kind of mull over those numbers and revisit them over the next couple months probably, and use that information for upcoming purchases and investments. So it doesn't really mean a whole lot to me today, but I'm going to think about it. Okay, on to how I network all this together and kind of the story of where I started and where I am now in the journey that I took. So I'm trying to think exactly how it all started. It was so long ago. Back in the day when we all had beige Macs, we had like Performas and other things. This was before Ethernet, Cat5, and we used Apple serial bus, which we connected our computers together and transmitted information, just small files, and that's how we first started shooting information between computers, and got little things that converted over to a telephone wire so you could run further distances between computers. And then the evolution of the switch and the router and Cat5 came along. I was young. Well, I don't know. I couldn't drive yet, because I remember my dad drove me to buy my first spool of 1,000 feet of Cat5, and that was a big deal. But bought a switch. I think it was an Asante, just a little 8-port switch, and started pulling wires through the ceiling and dropping them down. I'm going through this detail really to inspire people that you can do it. I'm not a professional, but what I did worked and continues to work, and it's really not that difficult for just basic putting computers on a network with printers. It takes a little bit of research, but with the internet and with YouTube, you can hop on there and you can figure anything you want out. So don't think you have to hire somebody to do your networking for you, but that's fine. If you want to hire somebody, that's fine too. I mean, whatever floats your boat. So for many years, I used Apple Airport Express routers and access points for the wireless networks on this property, as well as the routing of information. And they no longer make those. So over the years, I've been wanting to upgrade. And this past year, I did upgrade, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. But for many years, the Apple product was great and worked fine. In a perfect world, you'd be running a switch with one wire out to each computer and each printer, anything that's going to be on your network. But in my world, you run a wire out to a computer, and then in 2 years you have 2 computers there, and then 3. So you basically just put another switch out on the end of that run, and daisy chain them together to access new areas of the building or things like that. And that all works fine. Actually, let me show you the equipment that I accumulated over the years. This was my first Crimper, which when I was a teen, I wrote on here the order in which you put your wires when you're making the cables. So on Cat5 wire, there are 8 wires that go through there, and it matters what order you have them in when you put them in the connector. Now when I first started, when I was like 15, I didn't know that it needed to be in a certain order. And the reality is, for short length, it doesn't matter as long as it's the same on either side. But as I learned more about it, I realized I needed to put them in the correct order, and that's so that there's not interference between the wires for longer distances. So that's what I have written here. White, orange, orange, white, green, blue, white, blue, green, white, brown, brown. And I just had that written on there so that wherever I was, you know, I didn't have to remember that. Then you have your connectors. And boy, I'm not going to go over all that. If you want to know how to do that, find a YouTube channel that a professional will teach you. But I also have this tester. Not necessary, but you can plug this in and check that your pinout is all correct. Or if there's a ground, like you have a wire that's smashed somewhere. So that's what I use to do my networking stuff. It's just really simple stuff. I've recently gotten a cable stripper and punch down tool. Those come in handy as well. So my first switches, I think, were only 10 megabits per second. And then came, you know, some of my newer switches were 100, and now we have gigabit switches. So things have evolved dramatically in just the past 15 years, 20 years. Well, I'm getting old. But the reality is for a printing company, we're not transferring large files through the network. So you don't really need robust equipment. And on another side note, if you don't already know, if you shouldn't be working on files that are on another computer, meaning if you have something, a design file, an InDesign file on a server or something like that, you need to bring those files onto your computer and work on them before moving them off. That greatly eliminates the amount of traffic over your network, and it's just good common practice. So it was earlier this year actually that I was led on to a company called Unify, and they make Ubiquity network switches and routers, and then also security cameras. They do keyless entry systems, and what else? Oh, VoIP phone systems, all under the kind of the same umbrella. So I researched them, and I thought it would be a really good fit for me here, and I bought it. And the equipment has been great. It's extremely reliable. It's very user-friendly. There's plenty of videos on YouTube of people installing them and setting them up. So I bought one. Bad thing is now a lot of it's sold out, so if you want one, they're probably sold out. They've been back ordered. I'd love to get some more parts to build up the network here, but they're on back order, so I just have to push it down till next year. For me, switching over from my old system to the Dream Machine was very easy, because all I had to do was make the Dream Machine IP address the same as my old router, and then on the Dream Machine I just had to make the same wireless networks and their same passwords, so then I didn't have to change anything on any of the printers, laptops, iPads, phones. Everything just worked so easily. I was blown away. So I would totally recommend. Let me show you this stuff. It's pretty cool. Okay, sorry for the bad lighting. I never really anticipated filming here. But this is basically the what my network is, and the Dream Machine Pro is right here, which is like my router. And so the internet comes in to my router, and then it goes back out, and I have it connected to a PoE switch, which power over Ethernet is for the access points that I have in the building. And then I have my old switch up here that it also works off of. And then I also got the NVR, I guess, for the security cameras right here. What I use for long-term storage, I have a Netgear Ready NAS, and I also have a Synology NAS as well, for different things, that projects, old projects, and also temporary transferring of files. Now, if you're a professional, don't judge me on what you just saw. I had no training whatsoever, but what I put together works, and it works well for me. It's very reliable and cost effective. The Ready NAS, which stores all print jobs that I've done, is also backed up in a different building. So I don't have cloud storage, but I have a mirror set up, which means it copies all the information into another machine as well. So if this building burnt down, I would still have a backup. If all the buildings on my property here burnt down, then I'd be screwed, but oh well, we'd figure something out. So Unify also sells the wireless access points, which have been really nice. And another great thing about the Unify system is the user interface. I can check it from my phone. I can log on to a computer anywhere in the world and access my network, and then you can set up separate networks, which was a big plus for me. So I could set up a separate network for my business, a separate network for rental area, so then you don't have different people seeing all of your peripherals. So there's so many features that I don't use, but someday I might want. But yeah, you could limit the amount of bandwidth for certain people. You could block a person. You can open up and see who is on the network, and if you see somebody that's connected to your network that shouldn't be, you can get rid of them. So there's pretty cool features like that, and it's really reasonably priced. The Dream Machine Pro is what, 200 or 300 bucks. Access points are like $100 a piece. It was cheap. It was great. It was a good choice. I'd recommend it. One last print job, I guess. So I hope that answers some of your questions. I know some people have been asking me about the networking, and I haven't gotten to talking about it, so there you go. Well, I think that's a wrap. Happy New Year. Thanks for watching. I'm grateful for everybody that watches these videos and puts comments below. I hope you have a great 2022. We'll see you later.